Hey, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Kevin here, also known as AKAAWOL. So this week I'm going to do things a little bit different. I've got a lot of footage that I shot and much to explain. And I also have this announcements for this week's winner of the contest that was announced on Instagram. So be sure to follow me on Instagram as well as subscribe here on YouTube because you never know where I'm going to post a giveaway. Let's see here. So basically you're looking at a time lapse of me making a small bag. You can tell that it's about 128 strings, and I'm just basically got it clipped down with two of the smaller paper clips. That's all I needed to hold that in place. And this will kind of give you an idea how it breaks down. So while you're watching that, let me tell you a little bit more about the whole giveaway process. If you've already entered previously, you still might be a winner. You guys came up with some great questions, and we'll see what comes around. If you haven't entered, you should do so as soon as the next one comes around. I mean, heck, you never know what kind of question I'll use. In fact, this week's question, at first I really thought it was pretty stupid. But it was some thought. I kind of realized that there really opened up the door to so much that I could really share. So, without further ado, this week's winner is Dusty Pup 74. And her question was, does it take very long to complete a bracelet? So I thought, at first it's like kind of, it really depends on some factors, right? But things like size and the difficulty, those things come into play. And I mean, look at the size of the thing I'm working with here. But the fact is, it takes us all a bunch of time to make our art. And sometimes it's even more than we actually give ourselves credit. So I kind of want to explore those ideas here today, as well as kind of show you what was going into making this small bag. Really, these small bag projects I've been doing have been a lot of fun for me, and have given me a bit of insight to try to get around to doing a tutorial to kind of better show how I do the base when I'm doing the circular type, the flat ones, as opposed to just bringing it in from a diamond. So there it is. That's with before I attach it. Now, here, watch this. This is, to me, this is one of my favorite parts, and this is a part where you really need to kind of slow down a little bit and make sure you get it right, because this will make all the difference in the world. This is where the secret of how you connected it gets hidden away. See, I take the second clip and I bring those two pieces right together and clip the loops. See, if you get this wrong, everybody will always know where you put the two ends together, right? And I know that I on a previous video I showed the whole epiphany thing to kind of give you an idea on how to do it, but this is it. And you see, I just broke away just the strings that I really need, just, you know, some from the left and some from the right, of where it's really just going to join. Isolate the string that's going to connect the two sides, and just make sure that those two just really mash right together. And that one knot, man, that's a real deal breaker right there. So really, just take your time on that one. That can that really will change everything for you. All right, so now, back when I first started, I was only making candy stripe bracelets. They're just the simple, comes down in a straight row, goes across, and that was ages ago. And they kind of took me a while, right? But then when I got good at those, and I was actually getting faster at those, then I moved on to chevrons, and again, that took me longer. And then from there I moved on to a bunch of other patterns, and each becoming more difficult. So as my skills were getting better, what I chose to work on also changed. So realistically, when people ask, like, how long does it take, I could crank out something like the candy stripe thing in no time at all, but there would be no challenge there for me. There would be nothing, you know, of interest for me other than maybe, you know, making a quick buck or something. And I don't think most of us are in the doing this work for that reason. I mean, I suppose some people, they've done a candy stripe and that's what they love, and they'll continue doing that for years to come. But for me, and I think most of the people with this art, you just go and you find the most difficult thing that you think you can tackle, and you just attack it. I mean, that's what this whole bag thing here is all about, right? I mean, I'm I'm taking a chance with 128 strings that to create a base to a bag just to see if it'll work properly. And you know, it could go completely belly up. It could make it so that way all the work I'm doing here could be for naught. The previous one, I think if you've been following me on Instagram, you'll have seen it, kind of came down to a bit of a point, and really didn't care much for that one personally. But at the same time, I think maybe somebody will like it, maybe somebody will buy it. I don't know. If you like it, you want it, make me an offer. We can talk about it. But I'm trying to come up with something a little bit better. And there was another picture in Instagram. Maybe you've got a chance to see it. Small bag sitting on the keypad. Haven't had much chance to shoot. I was kind of waiting until I got the strap made, and with the wife being really busy, she hasn't been able to do it. And I really, when it comes to making the kumihumo braids, my wife is the real master of it out of the two of us. So if I wanted it done now, I could try it myself, and it'd be kind of okay, or I could kind of wait on her and have it be fantastic, because she could do it with like 24 strings instead of just 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever. So that's why we're kind of waiting on that one. But that bag had 6 loops, so it's just a bit smaller, and the base turned out really just rocking. So this experiment is all about, can I get the similar look but having used more strings? And then basically what I'm looking to do here is kind of find the right formula and then scale it up to bigger size bags, something that I think that, you know, would really be what people could use and are going to be looking for. So that's where we're headed with this. So let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see I got where this bag is so far here. It's well attached. They're anchored pretty well. And this is all previously recorded if you haven't figured that out, because the time lapse and everything else, right? So at some point here, I'm going to clip it down to the board other than how it is now. That whole bouncing thing, that gets kind of annoying. Even just watching it here, I'm kind of making me a little seasick, but yeah. This also, I guess, kind of gives you an idea of how fast I actually am at the making stuff. This is kind of a slower part, I suppose. Probably mostly because it's moving around. Oh, the other thing that's slowing me down is, you can't tell, but where the camera is, it's well, I'm using a phone for this one. It's sort of almost right where I would want my head to be, because I'm trying to give you the view of what it would look like from when I'm doing it. So yeah, me actually trying to create videos for you guys is actually kind of really slows me down a bit, kind of throws the spanner in the works, so to speak. But still, I think the footage actually looks pretty good, except for the fact it keeps going in and out of focus. Alright, so here we go. Bigger clip. And yeah, I was going to try to actually clip the 2 clips together. That didn't actually pan out quite like I had hoped. You'll see in a second, I kind of give up on that notion pretty quick. I suppose you could make it work. I suppose if I actually did a bit of looping some string around those little holes that the smaller silver clips have, I could give it the black clip something kind of more to grip onto, if that was really my end goal. Really, most of what I do it's about trying to make everything, just a little bit more ergonomic, make it a little bit easier. Like this right here, everything is being done. I've got a board clipped onto an easel, which is helping to make it, stay nice and steady, in front of me. So all I have to do is just concentrate on the strings themselves and which direction they're going. So, anyways, back to that question about the time. You may have actually started your whole, bracelet making journey differently than I have. Today there's videos like mine, there's websites, so you might have just jumped right into the difficult stuff. And I know this because I look at stuff that people have posted, and you can see that the time for learning was skipped, and developing certain skills that take time is also kind of part of that process. So you kind of, how do I describe that? If you look at my work, all the knots are really evenly spaced. They're evenly sized. Occasionally you'll see a little bit of that being off, and that may come actually because of the string that I'm using. Occasionally I get something in there that's just a slightly different gauge, and that really can kind of throw it off a bit. But what keeps my work looking consistent is really all about the tension. And there's ways that you can actually kind of test yourself on this. A candy stripe is actually a perfect way for doing that. Do a candy stripe bracelet and try to keep the tension consistent all the way through. And when you keep it where you only have about 5 rows from showing out from underneath your clip. So that way you just kind of keep hiding away the whole top section that you made, and just keep coming down, keep coming down, keep coming down. And why you're doing that is when you finally pull it out, take a look, because a candy stripe bracelet will twist on you. And that's how you're going to know if how your consistencies is for your knots is that twist kind of making like a spiral, like a DNA, steadily down there, or does it start out really tight and then get looser, or vice versa? Maybe it starts out loose and then gets tighter. If it's not consistent there, then you're probably not really ready to be moving up to really advanced patterns. I mean, it's just kind of common sense, right? If you struggle with making your knots nice, focus on that for a minute. Make sure that you got that process down, and then move on. And then you'll notice immediately, once you start getting at that process kind of worked out to where all the knots are coming in consistently, yeah, everything will just really start to fall into place a whole lot better for you, and your work will look just 100 times better. And I think that actually might answer some questions. Some people were asking me about, I forget what it was, something on Instagram. They said something about having my bracelets being so flat. And I'm not exactly sure that that's the question that they were asking, but that may actually be the answer to it right there. So, and how about, okay, so the questions for the makers out there. When somebody asks you how long it takes to make a bracelet, what are you counting? Do you just tell them like how long you sat down and were doing the knotting? Did you, count in how long it took you to cut the string, or getting the floss all untangled when you first got it into it? Or perhaps you wound it onto bobbins. Does that count too? So that whole idea, this whole idea of how long does it take, man, there's so much that goes into this. I get just a big box of string when I place my orders now. I order in the thousands. Early on, I might have only picked up enough for 4 or 5 bracelets, and then I would have to basically wait until something sold, take that money and go get more string. And back in those days, everybody at the shop knew me. Oh, here comes Kevin. He's obviously here for more string again. How much, And yeah, I used to have to go shopping for it kind of regularly, because I could only buy, $5, $10 worth at a time. And back then, I'm not sure that I don't think I actually wound it onto the bobbins very often. I had I think back then I actually just had a bunch of hooks on the wall where anything that was left over was up on the hooks, and try to keep using that kind of stuff. So that way there was, I was always using some string that was maybe already cut to go, kind of going with the string that I had just bought, kind of thing. Kind of like almost fresh, like fresh produce sort of style of doing stuff. Now I have to basically sort it into the projects that I've given, and there's probably a whole day right there goes into just that. And I wind it onto the bobbins mostly because it gives me a chance to actually kind of inspect the string. Because if it comes with like a knot tied in it, like it was the end of the spool and they tied on some more, chances are I can't really use that. So that's, yeah, I'll end up cutting it down and putting what I can use off into a box, on its own. Otherwise, when it's a whole full skein that I can use, that goes into other boxes. I think I seriously have like almost a dozen of those, and one with its cut sizes. And the cut strings right now, I'm basically cutting the skein into thirds. So if you're trying to figure out like the length that I'm working with here, it's basically 1/3 of a skein. So it's what, 2 plus something meters. I'm not sure exactly what the length of it is. I guess it's 2.5-ish maybe. So if we're counting out how long it takes, how about just picking out the colors? That's when you're buying the floss. Oh man, I used to spend ages in the store, kind of which I want to fade to blue. Which ones go best? That one has a little hint of green to it, so that's not going to fit. And maybe not this one because of something. So all that's part of the whole process too, right? So when you're selling it and people are saying, like, well, how long? Well, did you count that into it? I mean, just my last order I just placed, that was probably a whole afternoon that was spent, just me and my wife sitting down. I pulled out the boxes of the 447, which is basically one of every color that my supplier has. They haven't gotten the new, I think there was a good dozen or so that DMC colors that just came out. They weren't particularly great colors. It was, probably great for somebody who is doing some kind of embroidery and they wanted some subtle hues differences, to get the color of water or grass a bit better or something, but nothing striking, So I still just have the 447, and we pulled that out, and we were just matching up those little bobbins and looking for just the right kind of combinations and trying to match that against other things that were made before. And that's a whole like I said, a whole afternoon, just seriously just, okay, so what are we going to get and how many of those? And that was a lot of time, mind you. Was it worth it? Of course. Was there any other way of doing it? Probably not. And when you're buying in bulk, when you break it down to how much time was there needed to buy string per bracelet, it probably doesn't actually account for very much at all. But it's still actually part of the process, right? So yeah, the whole process takes a bunch of time. And then cutting the string. You might cut it in quarters, you might cut it in thirds. Some people, I think are still just kind of cutting out how much they think they're going to need. That, to me, seems a little bit dicey. I kind of started out like that. But then I realized I kept ending up with a piece that's maybe only 1 meter long, and that wasn't long enough for me to do anything with. So when I started cutting the skein up into quarters, I realized that, yeah, as long as I was conservative with my knotting, I could cut the string into quarters and, you know, get a few bracelets out and have very little left over at the end of it all. I've seen people posting that they actually have some kind of a mathematical thing worked out, so that if they know how many knots are getting used, they know exactly how much string to pull out in the process. I've never gotten quite that crazy with it. I would rather have a bit too much than to run out. Just personally, I just don't want to see things go that far south. So that's something to, you know, just to kind of keep in mind. You know, just a little bit longer is obviously a lot easier than just a bit short. That said, I do teach how to actually add string, but if you're just doing a bracelet as opposed to a bag, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It takes a lot more time, and it's going to take you a lot more string to add in. So really, that's best if you're actually doing something that's so big that it would be impossible to have string long enough for that project. So yeah, oh, cutting string, that takes a bunch of time for me. Oh my god. If let's say I'm working on a bag like this, part of the whole thing was trying to, you see, there's 4 main colors for each segment, right? So I have to actually match 4 colors to the left and 4 colors to the right. That'll be the segment that comes underneath. So I can't get really too far ahead of the whole process when it comes to cutting up the string without getting them into, you know, organized little groupings to make sure that all the colors are going to match up when I go to put the whole thing together. So a project like this would take a lot more time than instead if I just used, say, maybe 8 colors. So if you're getting into the really complex stuff, that's just going to be that much more that you have to take into consideration. But that's just part of the process, right? Sometimes on some projects, some things, I might not actually go to the whole trouble of actually winding it onto a bobbin. That's very seldom, though. Because like I said, I want to be able to check the skeins, make sure everything is okay. And it's also, when it comes to the time of actually getting around to actually doing the project, I want to know that I can just unwind the string without having to worry about all the knots and stuff. A lot of times when you get that the skein and you're trying to, you know, get it from the 2 ends together so you can kind of find the middle point. That can take so long, because if it's all twisted up and turns into knots and things, that's a huge time killer. It's a huge creative killer in my case. So doing that on one day and just focusing on nothing more than making sure that the strings are all usable and that it's enough for my project and all that stuff might actually save me a whole lot of time from when I'm in that like super creative process where, you know, I'm excited, I want to get this color and that color, and I'm going to put these together and it's going to be so cool. And then I'm suddenly, you know, now my whole creative energy is just zapped, because now I'm trying to undo the knots and untangle, and it's taking me too long, and I'm spending hours just trying to get some strings together, and oh, that color that was going to be perfect, that's not going to work because it had a knot right in the middle where, you know, it's, you know, going to make it so I can't use all the string that I needed for it. So as far as like getting the bobbins, yeah, definitely highly recommend that. That's definitely a thing. Yeah, so those boxes, the keeping it organized, the wife and I kind of have different kind of views on that. I try to keep them fairly mixed up. She likes to put the stuff together in groups, you know, like put all the purples together. And I have at least, I think, a dozen or more of those. So yeah, I mean, there's room. I could have a yellow one and an orange one, etc., etc. But I like to be able to see. Occasionally, I'll just see two colors together, three colors together, and that sets off an idea for me. Like, wow, that's something I want to make. And you get a lot more inspiration, I think, by having your colors all mixed up than if they were just a whole box of reds. And yeah, if I'm looking for red, yeah, it'd probably be a whole lot easier just to go to that box of reds. But some days you just pull out a dozen boxes and you just start opening them all up and just taking a look and go from there. But yeah, that's my thing. Maybe it'll help you in your process, maybe not. But I'm just trying to share all my processes and hoping that maybe maybe I just say the right thing and you guys come up with something that helps make your work even better. So, so how much time are you guys spending on your loops, right? That's another thing that takes a lot of time in the whole bracelet making, right? Way early on, I just used to take the strings, kind of go over around my finger a bit, and then tie it into a knot, and just go with that. And there was just, the 10 or so little strings just kind of looped over, all kind of loose or whatever. And God, it was probably like early 90s or something. Somebody had criticized that, you go to so much work to make the bracelet so nice, and you're just taking no effort at all on your loops. That's you're skipping something there. You're making it completely unprofessional looking, right? And I don't know. It was such a slap in the face to me. I was like, wow, criticizing the one thing that I love, So after that, I started braiding the strings, and that looked cool. I mean, it looked better than, of course, than just having the strings just all kind of loose or whatever. And I know a lot of people, they like to do this whole macrame thing where they take one of the strings and they just kind of macrame over the whole rest of the group. That takes a bit more time, right? Or you can use the kumi disc, right? Which is kumi humo, which is Japanese style of braiding. So different ways, different styles or whatever. All these things take time. For me, I prefer the kumi loops. You can see my loops there, right, at the top. So what I think is one of the things I like best is it always looks great. No matter what kind of sequence you put into it, they always come out pretty damn cool. So there's that. But it also uses all the strings evenly. So kind of gather from people that do the macrame version, whichever string you're going to macrame around the whole rest of the group, if that's part of what's going into the bracelet, then that string has to be measured extra long. Now, I already told you how I cut my string, right? Everything is cut to the same lengths, and it's cut so that way I can use them all evenly and spread them out, between different things. Let's say if I use like 2/3 today, that 1/3 will go into my project next week or whenever, right? So I don't want, necessarily weird remainders or anything. So for me, doing that means I would have to use one of the colors that's I'm maybe not used in the pattern so much. Like, for example, if you're looking at this work here, in front, the ones that are towards the centers, the dark green, the dark orange, or the dark blue, they don't see as many knots as, say, the lighter colors that are on the outsides, right? So that would be safe to use that. But since it's a lesser color and you just made your loop that, then you're kind of drawing the focus to the lesser color. So to me, that kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's not probably how I would want to frame it. If you look at like artwork in a studio, they tend to try to, around the frame area, they try to bring out the color that they want you to look at in the picture. So in my loops, I'm really showing off all the colors, everything that went into that whole bracelet, even the ones that you would hardly notice. And I think that gives it kind of a depth. So, and like I said, my wife, she's the master of the kumi. I can kind of limp by. It's not super difficult or anything. It does have some advantages. It's basically, if you look at any kind of rope that's made, that's pretty much how they make rope. They can use a big machine for it. I don't think I could afford to buy a machine to actually do mine. I would love it, but I don't think that's even remotely feasible. But there's different ways that obviously that's something. Like I said, it takes the time in what we make. So yeah. I mean, when asked how long it takes, did you count that in? Let's see. What else is there? Oh, so for anybody who doesn't actually make bracelets that's watching this, different patterns can take different amount of time. That's a big one. So if you compared, say, my first to my second bag, the first one I probably did just over a week. I know that in the website I kind of give like a breakdown of like what was done each day or whatever. I think it was right around a week or so. The second bag it just took forever. I put it down for a while. I just couldn't go back to it. It was driving me insane. At least 3 times as long. And there was the same exact number of strings. In fact, I thought that they were going to end up being the same size. The difference was because different gauge string. But it's actually quite a bit bigger. The gauge string that I ended up buying for it was much bigger than the first bag. And the reason it took so much longer wasn't because the string was thicker or anything like that. In fact, the string was actually easier to use than the first one. The problem was you couldn't, like the bracelet in this video here, you can see that I could concentrate to one area at a time and just get that area completed before really moving on. The second bag, which was orange with a couple blues in it, that one you could only do a little tiny row here and there, and then you had to kind of turn it and then do the same, and it was constantly kind of shifting it around just to do a tiny little bit before moving on to the next area. And it's pretty. It's a beautiful thing, but it's really something I'm not sure I would want to really take those on too often. I'll do it again. I mean, if somebody said, hey, they want to buy a bag from me and they're going to spend the money, sure, okay. But realistically, there are some patterns that are just way easier. So for those people who didn't know that and you're just getting into the hobby, that's something to consider when it comes to like selling, because how much time did it take you to even, let's say, even coming up with a pattern, right? Let's say if you're like myself and you don't want to just go trying to look up something, and you're drawing your own patterns, and you're putting into the bracelet, and you're going to put in a nice kumi loop, and then you're going to spend your time and you're putting in all this effort for the knotting, and you chose the perfect colors and stuff. All that is part of making a bracelet. So it really is very time consuming. It's always going to be time consuming because you're always going to want a bigger and better challenge, right? So it's kind of what makes it difficult as far as like, well, what kind of price do you put on it? And realistically, you are never, ever going to get, you won't get rich off of this for sure. I know some people who say they can basically make a living, but there. It's not going to be like, you know, driving around in a Rolls Royce or something, right? It's it's a nice hobby for me. It's super therapeutic. It keeps me kind of calmer and stuff. I mean, I've gone on vacation and like I am just going to have a nice relaxing vacation, and we went into Malaysia, and we get across as soon as we were into Malaysia. I found this shop, and they had embroidery floss, nice DMC, and it was super cheap, like way cheaper than I can normally buy it for. So I picked up some, and before you know it, man, I'm back to bracelet stuff in my hand, and the whole idea of a nice relaxing vacation turned into, yeah, this is what I like. This is something I enjoy, and yeah, I enjoyed the scenery of where we were, and the quietness and the cooler temperatures and all that. But I enjoyed making the bracelets as well. So if that's your thing, then how long it takes, that really doesn't matter, does it? If you're happy, if you're giving them away as gifts, and your friend is happy, then the amount of time, yeah, that doesn't matter either. Yeah, at one point I think I would probably would have given up if not for finding more intense patterns, more bigger things like this to kind of work on, because at some point, you know, it was really about the challenge, trying to come up with something that's a little bit more skill, I guess, more whatever. So if you can see here, I mean, really, these two are completely joined. You can see that they're when you look at it, nobody's ever going to know where you joined it. It's one big solid piece, right? So hopefully I can get some of you guys to start making some of these bags. I would love to see what other people come up with. I've seen a couple of you guys out there, you know, putting some together. I can't think of where the locations are. I know one's in Africa and one's north of us. I think she's up near Russia, but not quite there yet. I can't remember what country, but hers was amazing. I even shared it on Instagram way back when after the first bag. She modeled hers after mine, and the pattern was absolutely stunning. So hopefully I get you guys hooked on this bug, get you guys working on this stuff, and you know, maybe I'll get some inspiration for myself off of the things that you guys make. If you do make something, tag me. You can, whether you're YouTube or if you're maybe on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you know, just drop me a line. My website's got a commenting section. Drop me a line in there. That'd be great. Because yeah, I'll definitely want to take a look at some of the work, and you know, if there's anything I can help you work out, then we can do that too. Because you know, it gives me ideas for the channel. That's kind of what the contests are about, right? Give me a good question, give me something to work with, something I can teach, and that we can kind of go from there. So yeah, see how I just take the strings from an area, kind of sort out like just the area I need. This is helpful because it kind of keeps, like, everything that was in the back is just swept off to the side. I'm not moving it around. I'm not getting it tangled. I don't have to worry about untangling it later. And then the ones I just finished there on the left, yeah, I just drop that onto a pile. Don't have to get particular about it. There's no sticking the string into something to hold it or anything. If I need it up higher, like just really more out of the way, I'll clip a paper clip off to the side of the board, and that way I can kind of dangle those strings up over that. You know, if the pattern is just something where I have to keep breaking up little sections at one after another, so that'll help you out. That'll actually save you some time right there. So no, So I think I basically covered everything I could think of for that. Everything that, as far as how long does it take, right? It's a lot. It's always a lot. No matter how good you get, it'll probably always take a lot of time to make a bracelet. So if you don't make them and you're looking at people to buy them, maybe you might even want to tip the person a bit, you know. I'm sure that we all feel that our work doesn't quite sell as much as we feel that it should, but like I said, we're never going to get rich doing this stuff. Even some of the more like larger size bags and stuff I've made, where you know there's a few hundred strings involved. When you take about how much materials and how many hours were involved in making the whole thing, yeah, I think I would have prices with right up there with most of the bigger designer stuff. So at some point here, we're going to end up with the back to the time lapse, and you kind of speed it up. I kind of had gotten so much into the groove of making this, I'd actually kind of forgotten that I was just still shooting this in live video. So that's kind of why I needed a topic where I could really ramble a bit, because I was just really enjoying just tying some knots, you know, making an afternoon of it. So you guys get a nice long topic and a nice view of what I'm doing. So in a minute here, this whole thing wraps up. Please be sure to subscribe. Go and check out the website. Take a look at all the other tutorials. There's a lot of material in there. I hope to be adding a lot more coming up. I'm trying to work on the whole process for recording sound and recording the videos, and I'm gonna just make some regular bracelets and show how that goes. Probably do it in time-lapse only because in real time it would just be really too long for me to come up with something to talk about, kind of like this, right? So yeah, but there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe, so hopefully I can keep you guys pretty entertained and teach you some stuff, give you some inspiration, and it should be a lot of fun. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so hopefully it's been fun. Dusty Pup, I will be sending your stuff. Just get a hold of me and give me your address. We'll get it sent out. Alright, and thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you have any questions you'd like answered in future tutorials, leave a comment below. For more on friendship bracelets, visit AKAAWOL.com. Also, be sure to hit me up on Instagram at AKAAWOL. Thanks for watching, and don't get your strings in a bunch.